conservation photography in a slightly more serious way. It may not elicit so many laughs, but I guess I promise you won't get bored. That's the idea. So, an overview, we talked about this. Why conservation photography? So what, okay, we won't talk much about conservation. We know what conservation really is, basically trying to save what exists, right? From extinction, from damage. So this beautiful tree is from Northeast. Can anybody identify this tree? This is also quiz questions, we will get to that. Okay, I got an answer, but who was it? Absolutely, correct. Anirban sir will get that. This is the rhododendron, which is the national tree of Nepal. And this is found in the Alpine hills. And Arunachal is my favorite destination. So for wildlife, I normally go there every year. And hence it's mandatory for me to put a picture of Arunachal in one form or the other. So this is where I begin. And here's a flavor of Indian wildlife. So just maybe a sample across the nation where you can watch wildlife. This is the chinkara, the Indian gazelle from Desert National Park, Rajasthan. This is the Eurasian coot from Nandur Madhyameshwar from Maharashtra. This is the Himalayan monad from Uttarakhand. This, of course, is a Bengal tiger from Zimbabwe. This is a picture-wing dragonfly from Navi Mumbai. This is a common rhesus monkey, which many of us have seen from the backyard of my home, Kanpur. This is a gharial from Chambal, Morena, Madhya Pradesh. This is the Tibetan sand fox from Sikkim, Gurudong. These are saras cranes from Bagh, Uttar Pradesh, near Agra. This is Busumeyer's forest skink from Katikad, Kerala. This is Malabar grey hornbill from Dandeli, Karnataka. And this one is a Bengal falcon from Assam. So now you can see the colors, the variety, the habitats. And trust me, you should be so proud of the Indian natural wealth, which very few nations have. That's the idea of this session, that we should appreciate what kind of wealth we actually have. So we have money, that's one wealth. We have natural wealth, which can't be measured, but can be seen. And this is where we realize how important conservation really becomes. And only when we realize the wealth we have, would we be sensitized to protect it. So the first step is awareness. We should know the kind of variety, the habitats, the kind of birds and animals which we have in our country. So we begin with a quiz. Which is the fastest living being on Earth? Hummingbird. Do not answer that a man is traveling in a bullet. Hummingbird. Sorry? Hummingbird. No. Anybody else?
Cheetah.
Cheetah, no. Okay, hint. This is the one.
Swift.
Sorry?
Swift.
No.
Albatross.
Sorry? No.
Actually, you are very
Somebody who said no. Somebody who
You
said
need to give the exact idea.
peregrine falcon. Paridosh gets the answer.
Peregrine
Peregrine falcon can soar to speeds of 320 kilometers per hour when it's swooping down to catch its prey. So you can imagine the kind of speed which exists in the natural world. That's the fastest.
Is it found in India?
Yes, this is from to sensitize people through a photograph. What we're trying to convey, the plight of that particular bird or animal in the urban or its natural setting. So that little bird which you see is actually not that little. It's actually this big, about 5 feet tall. It's called the black-necked stork. It's an endangered bird. This is from Uttar Pradesh, and you can see behind there's a construction going on. Now these birds are very large, and they make these huge nests called platform nests. And normally what happens is they return to those nests every year, provided that the habitat is safe. But here we see the city gradually approaching, sounds, smells, and the dangers of city gradually approaching. So till when will this bird continue living here is the question. So that is what this photograph tries to sensitize the spectators with, that this is an example of a bird in trouble. Here's another example from Bagh, Uttar Pradesh. This is a black buck. Many of you might have seen it. Many of you know about it from the Salman incident. So here's another photograph trying to communicate the plight of this animal. Can anybody identify what the problem is which this animal is facing here in this photo? Yes. Sorry, I got the answer. हाँ, ठीक है, वो long term problem है, but barb fly is the immediate problem. Can I get the answer from the hand?
Food.
Oh, sir, thank you. It's actually barbed wires. This, you see the twigs, these are very agile creatures, they're done very fast. What happens many times is they are barbed wires which they are not able to see, especially because they come out during dusk or early morning. So the light is very low. A lot of times what happens is they are not able to see those barbed wires and they get injured. And if they get injured, there is no future. They will die. They will die. They will starve and die. There is no possibility that that feature survives. So another problem, as my friend mentioned there, is that these were grasslands and they have been converted into agricultural lands. So actually it is their own home, but they don't identify it now. They say, "ठीक है, पहले जैसा लगता है, घर जैसा है, लेकिन अब नहीं." So that's how they feel, and they're trapped here because they don't know where else to go. Because they are not forest creatures, they can't go into cities, so they're trapped in these grasslands and agricultural lands where they hope to live another day. So that is the plight of these animals here. Here is another example of the golden jackal. So this happens to be our favorite, I guess. And this was in Nandur again. This is a wetland which has been recently declared as a Ramsar wetland website, wetland site, which means that it's a site of national importance, and in fact international importance. So we were there, and in the night trying to look at owls and nocturnal birds, and suddenly we heard this rustling sound in the bushes, and we were like, "What is it?" We were a little scared. Kya hai? So suddenly this creature comes up, looks right into the camera. It's sort of new that where we are, because they have a very acute sense of smell. So he could understand that there's something in front of us, and that's where this photo was captured. It's slightly different. Another thing which I want to point out for photographers especially is that whenever you're capturing photos in the dark, make sure that whenever you have a source of light, you don't shine it directly on the eyes of the creature or the bird or whatever it is. It should be slightly on the left side or the right side. That's because of two reasons. One, you're injuring the eyes because they're primarily nocturnal creatures, so they might get temporarily blinded, which is a problem for them. And secondly, your photo will be spoiled because if you shine light directly on the object, it will be overexposed, your colors will be lost. So that's a vested interest which photographers might have. So idea is that you shift the light towards a left or right side, let diffuse light on the subject. So it will be, the colors will be, so you can see the golden color very clearly, and in the night this photo will be easily taken. So that's one example. Here, of course, we talked about the great Indian bustards. There's not much to that. This was in Rajasthan. There's this very short story which I'd like to highlight. So I had gone for a 4-day trip, and we had to see this bird. Of course, the main idea was to, so when you go to a tiger reserve, your main idea is to see the tiger, right? So I'd gone to the desert national park to see this amazing bird. And 3 days had passed, and we didn't see it. 4th day, towards the evening also, we'd almost given up hope. And there's this a person called Radheshyam Bishnoi, he's from the Bishnoi community. They work very, very, very dedicatedly towards preservation of wildlife in Rajasthan. And he suddenly said, Budavan, Budavan. That's the local name of the bird in Rajasthan. And he identified it. There's a bird, really long, kafi distance space, this bird is there. And that's when I managed to capture this photo. Slightly blurred, but at least the essence of it is captured. So that's the great thing. Here is a photo from Mumbai. So this also highlights an issue of conservation. Can anybody identify what the issue is in this photo? Please raise your hand.
Nesting.
Yes.
Food they are,
Feeding.
Okay.
they are feeding.
What's wrong with that?
Birds are too many and the feeding is very.
Sorry?
The birds are too many,
Yeah.
but the help we can give is too small. What I
Okay,
feel.
that's one way to look at it. Yes. Anything else? Lesser?
Crabs.
Okay, yeah, fine. What else? Anything else?
They are used to natural food. We are feeding. They used to some of the natural food, but we are feeding what
Yes,
we use.
exactly. That is one crucial point. That their systems are not meant for the food which we eat. It's either too sugary or too spicy or too oily. It's not good for us. It's not good for them. So that's the idea that that these birds should be fed. But more crucially, there's a very subtle danger which now you will probably be able to appreciate.
So can we say that they would have a sense of jealousy or fight because when there is one food source, a lot of people to attack that food source.
That's fine. That's nature's way. That's not a problem. So you replace this by, let's say, a school of fish that they're hunting. So they're limited.
If I have a
Yeah.
forest kind of a place where the food is distributed,
Right.
like so I have an open area where I can flow.
Right.
And if even I'm not that aggressive, I can go to the other tree or something like that.
Right.
Over here, it's in one particular area.
Right.
So and generally, animalistic nature would be to consume more than maybe they require.
Absolutely, yeah. So that is a danger, but in the end, it's survival of the fittest. So whoever decides to get a hold of that food would probably be the winner. So that's fine. But the major point, which is very relevant here, is these are young birds. These are juveniles, which means they haven't fully grown up, which means they don't know how to hunt yet. So the problem is they are migratory birds. They come from Russia, Siberia, places like that. And now after wintering, wintering season is over, they go back, and that's where they have to hunt, right? But they haven't learned that skill here because of this artificial feeding. So this entire population, this group of birds, may not be as adept at hunting, which is a natural instinct, because of this feeding. So this is the crucial part which you have to understand. Of course, besides the feeding itself, this is the subtle way we have to understand that natural, processes get disrupted because of human intervention. So that has to be kept in check. A third reason, which may not be applicable here, is that there is something called man-animal conflict, which many of you might have heard about. So if you feed animals and they get used to human presence and they start venturing into human territory, and then there could be altercations which are bound to happen. So that is another reason why they should be left as they are. They are very capable. They have outlived us. We are the last entrants in this race of evolution. So they'll be able to take care of themselves. Trust us. This is probably this species that has been there millions of years before we even arrived on Earth. So they don't need our help. They're pretty much fine. All we need to do is make sure that we don't pollute their habitat, etc. Here's a lesser flamingo again from Maharashtra, and you can see that there's a huge population here. In fact, they used to be migratory there, but they finally become resident because of high amounts of food available in the Thani Creek and adjoining areas. Partly because of eutrophication, partly because of pollution. We don't know exactly what the reason is. Because the creek itself has a lot of toxic material. But they tend to survive there possibly because of food. So this is a dichotomy which exists. Because they eat a certain kind of algae which is promoted by eutrophication, and that's why those creatures can survive. So they continue surviving and become residents in that state. I'll skip this one and this one. And yeah, we can talk about this one. So this again, Jalana, Rajasthan. This looks like a jaguar, right? The colors are very, very atypical of a leopard. So what happened was again in the evening. So a lot of times when you venture into sanctuaries or tiger reserves or national parks, you might have an agenda that okay, ये तो देखना ही है आज, ये tiger तो देखना ही है. So my suggestion always is go with an open mind. Never have a preset thing that this is what I have to see. This could be one of your wish lists, maybe at the back of your mind, but let it not be the guiding force for you to venture into the national habitat. So this was something similar. We had no idea that we'd be able to see it. We heard that leopards are very common in this area, but we had no idea. And this particular gentleman actually crossed the road, paused for a second, and now you'll see that the face is slightly off color. Can anybody identify why is that? Why is the face different color, different from the body?
Suntan.
Suntan. Anybody else? Sorry, melanin, okay. Very, very academic, very highly researched answers, but none of them are very very common answers. So no. Sorry, no. They're all scientific answers.
Because he could not get his own base.
No. Sorry.
Focus on space rather than on right or left.
No.
Your
It
flash,
wasn't that dark.
your camera flash.
So no. No. So I'll give you the answer then. There was a twig in front of its face. It has been blurred. Can you see? Carefully see, there's a small patch of light. That's actually a very green twig which came in front of my camera, and I couldn't change it. That's why the face is blurred. There's no other reason. The face is very much the same color as the body, but the twig came in between, and I could not possibly change my position because here it was looking right at the camera, and I knew that moment had to be captured. Otherwise, I'll regret it for the rest of my life that it was looking at me and I didn't capture it because of that twig. So a lot of times you have that, find that imperfection in the photos, and that's fine. It actually works. And there's something unique which comes out of this photo because of that little twig which is in front of the camera. So sorry to all those who are wishing for a very fantastic answer, but here it is. It's an error. Okay, so here's another very rarely seen creature. How many of you have seen vultures? Okay, that's good. Kahan dekhe aapne?
I am Ahmedabad.
IIM Lucknow. Okay, that's good. And where is Right there. Acha.
I saw them in my village,
Right.
like
Exactly.
eating some dead animal.
Yes, exactly. Vultures, yeah. Sorry?
Himachal Pradesh.
Himachal. Okay. Probably Griffin. There's something called the Eurasian Griffin. That would have been. So vultures, I'm very happy that most of you saw vultures because normally whenever I take a session or something, the answer is that we haven't seen vultures. In fact, the adults who were there also mentioned that we used to see this in our childhood, and now we don't. Because vultures, there's a very sad story, a real story, which is applicable for entire Southeast Asia. Around 1990s, the vulture population started decreasing phenomenally. So there were about 1 million, and they suddenly plummeted to maybe about 10,000. And how many of you have heard of this drug? Okay. So, of course, has anybody else? Yeah. What does it mean? What does this drug do? Yes. Right. Diclofenac is a painkiller given to cattle. So you know that vultures eat dead carcasses of cattle, cows, etc. Now we didn't know this. In fact, for a long time we didn't realize that what was happening is there's something called biomagnification. What happens is that some small quantity of drug ingested by a cattle, it's very small, maybe a gram or so. But when a vulture eats it, it accumulates, it doesn't get digested, and it accumulates and starts harming its internal organs. There's an immediate renal failure, and the vultures die within hours, maybe a day. That's it. So you can imagine that our population of vultures in India, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, all, at least in India there were 10 lakh vultures, and they were reduced to about 2,000 to 3,000 only within a span of 5 years. That is the kind of calamity we had, and scientists were baffled what is happening exactly, why is this sudden population decline. And that's when by serendipity somebody found out that okay, this could be a reason. They found high traces of diclofenac in the blood, and that's when they found out that this could be a reason. So of course, subsequently it was banned, thankfully, and the vulture population now is gradually increasing. There are breeding centers where vultures are being bred, and they are being sent back into the wild. So that is actually happening, and that's a good thing. And in fact, Jaisalmer is one of those places where you can actually see them in the wild in large numbers. So that is where I happen to see them. Another problem with this vulture population is something which you might have noticed is a large increase of feral dogs. The dog population has increased and kite population in the sky has increased because these are scavengers. Now what happens is there's an abundance of resource, which is their leftover food, which they are not able to finish because they're not there to finish. So somebody has to take their place in the food chain. So who does that? They are either dogs or kites. Kites are fine, they don't really cause too much problem, but dogs, they are not efficient scavengers like these are. They have very specially designed heads. Heads because, okay, pardon me for saying this, they can go right into the dead body, eat it, finish it off, and leave only the bones. They're very efficient scavengers. So what used to happen was when they were around, there were no diseases which could fester because of those dead bodies. And then after their population, around that time, you had swine flu, you had avian flu, you had all kinds of flu coming up. Public health with a pressure आया है because of lack of food. This is one major reason, because this is how nature has its own subtle way of saying that I am there, please respect me, please have a mindful decision. So the public health is directly impacted by vulture population. So that's how important we are. And now we realize this after long studies, after a lot of studies and research and thesis were presented, that's when we realized that's how important we are. And gradually they are being reinserted into the system. Feral dogs, of course, create a lot of problems, and one of the problems with bustard, the Great Indian bustard which we talked about, is feral dogs. They have a very long gestation period. So what happens is that the Great Indian bustard lays one egg in a year, and that egg is finished off by these dogs. So you can imagine that if that bustard dies in that next year because of the transmission via or whatever it is, that entire population immediately collapses. So this is the problem, the challenge, what nature has, that you have to understand to visualize what is really happening. So that's one example of vultures. This is also an example of, again, conservation photography, what we're trying to communicate for this. Okay, so here's a quiz. Again, show of hands. Which? No, the question is, whose Vahan? I asked to raise hand. Yes, the answer is Yamraj. That's actually a little bit of history. I did, mythology in fact. So that is just a fun trivia question. This is in student. Right. So that is part 2, and now we come to the main piece, which will not take more than 15 minutes or so, and so for us are getting impatient and we put in. So we'll try to wrap up soon. Photo stories are basically you capture certain moments and you sort of tell a story behind the emotion, the emotion which the animal is experiencing and the emotion which you as a photographer experienced when you watch that particular moment. So here's some example. This one is called Family. And these are very odd looking birds called the great pygmy. They're from Chambal, Madhya Pradesh. And you can see that there are two birds. Right? So I was in a boat and I saw these birds and they were looking at me very furtively. Normally they look and they fly away or they do some kind of action. But these two froze. So that sort of set me thinking there's something here. There's something which I need to wait for and understand why are they looking at me directly and as if कि मैंने कुछ गुस्ताखी कर दी थी डायरेक्टली ना. तो मैंने कहा चलो वेट करते हैं. थोड़ा देर वेट किया, बोट अपने आप थोड़ा आगे ड्रिफ्ट करी and this person, this male probably came out from that mound and again started looking at, very defensively. My doubts were confirmed that there is something hiding there. And sure enough, you see that? Yeah. So that was the first time I saw a chick of the great pygmy. This is again a very rare bird normally you don't see, but the Indian pygmy we have here in IIM campus, which you can see right next to the auditorium. Yeah, behind you. That's where I saw the Indian. There are two pygmies. One is the great pygmy, one is the Indian pygmy, and that is actually found here in IIM campus. So that's the emotion which any parent would show that when there is a potential invader outside, how this person didn't care. It kept this one. वो उधर से उधर रहा था, उसको कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा था कि क्या हो रहा है. ये लोग हमें देख रहे थे कि क्या हो रहा है. So the idea is that they were very, very, fertile about protecting the young. Then another one is called the unwanted guest. So this was from Nagarhole, Karnataka, and this was a group of spotted eagle. You can see that it's slightly blurred. This was my early photography days, I think 2013-14, and my hand was not even stable, so you can see it's blurred. And so they were feeding this entire, herd of deer was feeding very peacefully. Suddenly they looked up and they ran away. So what do you think would have happened? That's on me. Alright, so yeah, so that's the right answer. That was my first tiger sighting. It's actually a tigress, and it just came right in front, like a flame, of energy, of fire, and we knew that this is going to make a appearance. And it came, and of course within seconds those deer had bolted away. And I managed to, my hands were trembling so badly. मतलब कैमरा संभाला नहीं जा रहा था, तो ये आप देख सकते हैं कि ये बहुत ही blurred photo है, face भी clear नहीं. But I am proud to say that after 7-8 years I have graduated, so I can show another photo from Jim Corbett. So that's when I realized कि ठीक है, साथ में problem नहीं है, experience will be. So maybe a little bit of time, give time, you can have these moments as well. And you know that the tiger is going to cross. It's a beautiful moment. It seems as if the entire forest becomes silent. There's nobody else watching. There's respectful silence for everybody. यहाँ वही राजा साहब आ रहे हैं, बाकी सब शांत हैं. So that's how it is. So that's the tiger. And here's another one from Jim Corbett. There's a langur. And as deer, langurs and monkeys also start making these alarm calls. So you know that there's something around. And that's when this one was making certain sounds. So we knew that there's something which is going to happen. And sure enough, another tiger stepped. And this was right next to the water. You can see there's a slight water behind. So this was again in Jim Corbett. So tiger दिखाना mandatory होता है. ऐसा क्यों है? The reason था tiger. Normally I never show tiger photographs because normally it's a very charismatic species. Everybody understands. It's amazing, beautiful. But why do we need to focus on lesser known species? Why is so much attention given to the tiger?
National bird.
Please, anybody who can maybe give us
Population was coming down, so they
population.
are
Right, sir. That's one. Western population is even lesser, but nobody knows that. Or what else? What could be?
Spreading awareness.
Why? Why is that necessary? Why just the tiger? Why not
tiger considered to be the apex predator.
apex predator? Okay, that is one. Yeah, very good point. Yes.
The tiger in the show, if we conserve tiger, then all the subsequent steps all the subsequent species will also be conserved.
Absolutely. That is right. Can we please have a round of applause? That is a good reason. There's something called the umbrella species. So the tiger is a very charismatic species, and we know that a lot of media attention, a lot of general attention will be going to the species because of the very nature of it. It's magnificent. Who wouldn't be attracted to this kind of creature, right? So when you make this the face, the logo of your conservation program, we know that people are going to fund it. There's attention which there will be international organizations which are going to fund it. And what happens is because it's an apex predator, if you're protecting the tiger habitat, which itself is huge, you will be protecting everything which is also coming in that habitat. That's how it works. So you're not essentially just protecting the tiger, because if you're protecting the tiger, you're protecting its habitat, which is a large habitat, because each tiger would have its own area. And in that area, a small bird would have even a tiny small area. So if a bird is being endangered because of whatever reason, now you're protecting that area because of this tiger. Everything else in that area, be it insects, birds, plants, will automatically get that level of attention. You can join them in that conservation. So that is one of the major reasons why tigers, are charismatic species, are given so much importance. So that's one of the reasons which continues to be a valid reason. Yeah, here's another one. So there's this, it's a very common duck. It's visible here also. I think I saw a couple of days back lying right over here. This is right again next to home in Kanpur, and the lesser visiting duck. So this bird also comes out during dusk, and it's a water bird. It's a duck. And what happened was, I usually go to this place, Ganga Balaz, very close to my house. So usually we go there in the evenings and try to watch wildlife, etc. And suddenly I realized that this duck is swimming, but it has a long ribbon-like thing. And I was like, "Kuch plastic phas gaya hoga, pata nahi kya." Because the light was low, so I really couldn't see what it was. And then I focused, and I realized that there were 7 people come. Yeah, 7 chicks, very obediently following them on, trying to understand how to swim, how to feed. It was an amazing, heartwarming moment. I actually went knee deep, यहाँ तक पहुँच गए थे, because पानी के नीचे अगर आप ऐसे नहीं जाते तो फोटो अच्छी नहीं आती. So this is me actually half, in the water, trying to get that photo. But the story doesn't end here. So what happened was that this mom started, going towards the edge of the lake, and that's where it met these 2 purple swamp hens. These are also very common, birds. But the idea is, look at the expression of the mom. These kids were saying, "Mummy, bata lijiye, ye pata nahi kaun hai, who are these people? Please save us from them." And they were literally trying to, harass these little young chicks. So for a good 10 minutes, this mother kept screaming, top of her voice, that, "Who are you? Get out! This is my home." This black area behind was the actual place where they used to nest in the night. So there were any kind of disturbance around that area, the mom tried to take them there. So thankfully, these 2 birds went away, partly because it was so annoying. The bird, I don't know what worked, but it worked. So finally they went to their home. Again, an example to show that how human emotions and animal emotions are not very, very different. This is something which we would have done to make sure that if there's some kind of invader who's posing a threat to our children, we do the same thing. Alright, so here's a quiz. Okay, so ready? Show of hands, please. Which is India's largest national park? Okay, I hold on to that. Yes, go ahead. Huh? Absolutely correct. In Ladakh. MS National Park. It's about 3,500 square kilometers, if I'm not wrong. It's a huge area. And it has one of those rarest, alpine high altitude features, including the sand fox, we talked about earlier, Tibetan gazelle, snow leopards, which many of you might know. So these are very, exotic creatures, and gradually they're capturing media attention. Again, snow leopard is one of those charismatic species. So once you have the snow leopard in your conservation agenda, automatically everything around it gets covered. Right. So here's another story, another photo story. It's called Tough Luck, and this is one of the most interesting birds which we briefly touched upon. It's called the Indian skimmer. How many of you know about this bird, or have heard this bird, or any idea what this bird is? Okay, so I'll start from the very basic. Indian skimmer, or the skimmer in general, is one of the most unique birds in the world. Why? The beak, as you can see, the top beak is this one, and this is the bottom beak. So this is the only bird in the world which has asymmetrical beaks, which means that the size of the beaks are different. And why is that? They skim, like the one what they're doing. They skim on the river surface to capture fish. And now you can imagine, they are river birds, so they need a very clean river to do this. If it's not a clean river, the fish won't come to the surface, they're not able to see the fish, and they will starve. So they only fish in very, very clean waters, and Chambal River is one of the cleanest rivers in India. Partly because it was an area of dacoity, activities like that, and partly because it was considered to be a curse right? The Ganga Nadi is considered to be holy. Chambal is supposed to be the opposite of that. It's supposed to be unholy. So a lot of reasons, because of that, a lot of activity didn't happen in Chambal, and this was relatively left untouched. So the Indian skimmer is here. Now this interesting bird.
Takite is a way to protect.
Sorry.
So Takite is a way to preserve.
Yeah. So that is one way to make sure that it doesn't it doesn't get a problem. Here's another Indian skimmer count which actually happened. I was part of this count, and this actually does what it does is this is a count which happens across India, and this is found in Bangladesh and adjoining countries also, though it's called Indian skimmer. And here we go to those designated spots, and we're supposed to see how many skimmers are there in that spot and just report something similar to what we discussed in eBird. This ritual is what the male and the female in this photo do. This is the male which bows down to the female, does these weird antics trying to impress the female. And so there's a small video which I'd like to show at this moment, so you get an idea why it does that. And once, if its moves are attractive enough, then the female decides to mate. That's the idea. So here's an Indian skimmer. This is of course the male from the behind, and the female is actively checking him out. Looking at him, saying, "ठीक ठाक, तुम डांस कर लेते हो, योगा कर लेते हो, नहीं कर लेते हो, फिर हो नहीं हो." That's the idea. So there, that's the pose for the scene. And it's not interested, so it made it very good. So that's the image. This photo was my agenda. I really want to capture this moment because it's something very unique to the skimmers, the way they go and give that shape. And again at sunset, this is at the same word. Right, no course which here, we can skip this for the time being. And yeah, here's something very important. This is another rare bird called the lesser peregrine. It's my favorite bird in the world in India. And this is called Kharmor in Rajasthan, which is where it's found. Large population of it, maybe around 1800 of these birds exist. That's it. And they're also highly endangered. They belong to the bustard family actually, same family. So they are larger in size and they thrive in grasslands. So here's a video of what the lesser peregrine does during monsoon times, which is right now. And monsoon times, that peacocks open up their trail of feathers and skimmers do this bowing. So most of these birds have these interesting mating rituals. And the male does this interesting step during the monsoons. So you can see. Now what it does is, you can see it's hidden there. And there you go. This step is done 200 times a day. केवल इतना ही करता है, ऊपर जाके करके वापस.
ये इसका push-ups है.
Yes, so push-up. To impress the team. So another one. This is slightly closer, and you'll see again. So that is what the lesser peregrine does. Another very unique bird, unique to the Indian continent, Indian subcontinent, and it's not found anywhere. And this is another, a bird which you really should be proud of and do something about it. Say, and here's the bird in frozen in time. Thank you. Here's one called the night sculptor, and here we just talk about a small little animal from Kerala, and this is called the loris. You have seen Madagascar, the movie, the cartoon, the animation. So it's something somewhat related to that, but that's not the feature. This is a bird which is called the green eared nightjar. Again, very rare bird, different from owls, but in the same family. Here's the feature. It reminds me of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Great central loris. And here's again what happened was we were looking for owls. Usually what happens is that we were looking for nocturnal creatures, and we had no idea that we would see this one. It's a very rare, very, very shy creature, and you can see it's very delicate, just about this much. And it's a primate, belongs to our own family, closely related to us. Very difficult to see how, but that's how it is. And here it is, another shot. So you can see it's an arboreal creature, stays on trees, and again, endemic to India, not found anywhere. So here's a battle between two birds, again captured through photo stories. Here's they, flying in the air, trying to beat each other down. And this was again in Bhigwan, Maharashtra. Another very interesting place to visit. migratory seasons. Sky of falcons is one story that I talked about. Here is a very interesting bird called Amur falcon, and this is a passage migrant. So we talked about migrants, right? That they normally come here and go. Passage migrants are those birds or animals which come here and stay for a very short time, maybe 15-20 days, and then they proceed to their next destination. So I'll just show their path. This is where they fly from. They start from nearly about the eastern part of China, Mongolia, Korea. They come to Nagaland. That's one place where they stay for about 15-20 days, and then they proceed to South Africa. On their way back, they take another route. They don't go back to the same route. They go to the Middle East route and again go back to Russia. That's their route back. So on the way back, they don't come towards India. Now, so I had known about this bird. I had really wanted to see it. I wanted to go there in the right time, and that's why this story is called the Sky of Falcons, because that's exactly what it was. I couldn't see anything else except falcons. There were a lack of them flying around, and it was a beautiful sight. There's a video. But there's a serious topic which I want to talk about, is that in Nagaland, about 10 years back, these falcons used to be hunted down and sold as meat. And each bird used to be sold for about 25 rupees per bird. And they used to be shot down. They had these guns and whatever. They have food करके इनको खराब कर देते. And it was a very common sight. Very, very commonly happening. 10 years back, people started going there and started talking about these birds. ये क्या है? आप eco-tourist नहीं होता. Eco-tourist, which means that you go there, you stay there, you use local resources, and you pay the local guide for showing those birds around. And we realized that those people were earning now much more as birding guides rather than selling these birds. So it became very sustainable, and more importantly, they became stakeholders in their survival. Because जब तक ये birds हैं तब तक आपका survival. So this model, economy and ecology working together, is actually the need of the hour. Because nothing here is for free lunch. Nobody would like to just save birds or animals just because they are nice or because of emotional reasons. You give them an economic reason, and that's perfectly it. So 10 years down the line, the story is entirely changed. Numbers plummeted, and initially, and now they're in lakhs of numbers. And this is how it looked like that evening. You can imagine these birds flying around, and I'll just show a close up to show how these birds actually look close to the camera. Yeah, this was in the evening. That's how they look like. So on the right is the male, and on the left is the female trying to sort of shy away from the male.
Married and okay.
Okay, another bit.
Picture plan.
सही चलिए सर जवाब दे दिया भाई फ्लाइट So the question was identify the plant. So how many of you know about this plant? Okay, and how many have some idea what it is? Okay, good. Carnivorous plant. So how many of you did not know what carnivorous plants are? First time hearing carnivorous plant. Anybody? It's okay. Nice. Insectivorous carnivorous. Yes, for larger, it actually can eat small mammals. Insects, in fact, even lizards or mouse or any kind of small creature which falls into it. So the idea is that this pitcher plant has these digestive enzymes here in the pitcher, right? And what happens is there's a lid on the top of the pitcher. Now these plants grow in those areas which are very low in nutrients in the soil. So the only source is eating insects and animals. So what it does is that because of this nectar which is tipped on its edges, that insect comes, falls into the digestive enzyme, and the lid closes. And when the lid closes, there is no escape. So ultimately that insect or creature, whatever it is, gets digested and the plant feels okay. That's it. That's my meal for the day.
Where did you cite it?
This is Garo Khasi Hills. Again, this is Arunachal actually. But this Arunachal में orchidarium है, वहाँ पे देखा था. But native it is actually Garo Khasi Hills of Meghalaya. Again, there's only one single species found in India, Nepenthes. This is the only single species. There are many other species in the world, but India has just one. Nepenthes. Right, so here's a short story between, again, jackals are favorite. So what happened was there were two. So what jackals are very interesting. When we were talking about that, they're harmless. So they could be harmless, but they are harmful to when it comes to hunting. And they were about to hunt a bird. So there were three jackals here. There's one here, and one behind in the frame which you can't really see. And they had sort of coordinated how to hunt a purple heron, which is a very large bird. So yeah, that bird there. So you can see that this jackal is now trying to approach the bird from here. Another one was trying to approach from there, and another one from the left side. They were trying to, triangulate the position and try to capture the bird from all three sides. This is live. This is actually what happened. And so this was, I was almost sure that this heron might not be able to see because this is very dense vegetation. And this is typical wetland. You have a little bit of water, and then you have grass, and aquatic plants, and then of course forest trees as well. And here is when the confrontation actually happened. It just turned around because there was one coming from behind, and thankfully it took off. So that was the right hand. You can see the face of the jackal. So इतना disappointed था उसने अपना चेहरा भी नहीं दिखाया ठीक से. So that's how it was. And this actually kind of you have these kind of interesting adventurous times in the field. So that's pretty much it. And I think probably ethics is not much to talk about. This is something we can take a screenshot of. I won't dwell too much on this. And if there's any questions, we can take later. So if there's anything you want to discuss about that. And there's another thing called courses. Again, I won't talk too much about it. You can just take a screenshot. So there are some of these interesting photography and wildlife courses which some of you can take. Some of them are online, some of them can be taken in person. And anybody who's interested can continue pursuing this. Before anything, tomorrow at 5, we have a nature walk. So 5 a.m. Yes, 5 a.m. So the a.m. is very important. And that's how we'll
So like I explained, so nature walk का initiative है, ठीक है? तो हम लोग पहले 2 पॉइंट में विजिट कर रहे हैं. तो people staying at चाणक्य, who will start at 5 from चाणक्य, ठीक है वहाँ से. And students who are staying in hostel different PGP hostels, वहाँ हम लोग मीट करेंगे डायरेक्टली hostel 17. तो बेसिकली चाणक्य से हम स्टार्ट करके 17 की तरफ जाएंगे. तो हॉस्टल वाले स्टूडेंट्स यू कैन कम अराउंड 5:20 5:30 आप वहाँ पे मीट कीजिएगा और हम लोग 5 यहाँ से स्टार्ट करेंगे. तो यहाँ पे हॉस्टल 17 के पीछे अच्छी थोड़ी फॉरेस्ट एरिया है, वहाँ पर आप घूमेंगे. फिर हम लोग उमंग साइड जाएंगे, वहाँ पे कुछ अच्छे स्पीसीज जैसे अभी लील गाइस दिखी थी, ठीक है, कुछ अच्छे बर्ड्स है. ये हमारा एजेंडा रहेगा.
If there is any scope for questions, we are open to it. Or dinner is served.
Anything else you would like to ask?
Sir, yes please.
Without the motorized camera, often capturing the moment becomes a serendipity thing.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you have any tips on that. If you don't have a motorized camera, which is very expensive,
Right.
if you have a normal camera with a telephoto lens,
Right.
how do you capture the moment? For example, the fight of the bird.
Yeah.
That was a
That-
very
yeah,
difficult
very-
photo to capture, right?
Yeah.
So how did you handle it?
I think one option which I suggest is we can take a video. That really helps because the video captures the entire flavor of the entire moment and without losing the instantaneous, shot. And later that video can be processed to maybe freeze that shot and extract it. That can be one option. That is one thing which I have done.
Increase the shutter speed.
No.
We can, but still there's still a problem. It does happen because later it sort of does create a problem.
If there are a motion, then
No, shutter speed will kill the motion. Na?
Yeah.
You don't want to increase the shutter speed. That will kill the motion.
Decrease it first of all, and plus even then there's a possibility that if it's low light, it will be chances are.
Did you take a video? I mean that particular shot.
Yeah.
Did you take a video?
No, this one was at proper lens. The